My name is John, K-A-J John. I am not a blogger. I write a column. I insist I'm only a columnist. I've been writing for 8 years with Malaysia Kini, weekly, except for this 2 months, November and December. I'm taking my sabbatical, self-imposed sabbatical. I was in public service for 32 years, and I'm fighting for all the things I did not see happen in the government. Thank you, and I want to really acknowledge my gratitude to UPI for even inviting me. I don't claim ever to be a journalist, but I write to express my view, but I dare not be a blogger yet, because my emotions sometimes get carried away, so I always protect myself, allowing a bunch of editors to protect me. And that's positive protection, but I put some conditions with anybody I've written for. You only have first right of refusal. Second is the IP belongs to both of us. Third is no censorship, other than language or grammar and stuff like that. You censor my content, that's the last day I'm writing for you. And so far, the grace of God, but I've had first Zaid's good friend, Abdullah Kolanas, when he was the managing editor of NST, allowed me to do, but he said only verbal, no, nothing in writing. But since then, Stephen and Prem have allowed, and I have some email correspondence to at least firm up. My point is I negotiated that. Why did I do that? It all started with me being in public service. I once reported on a boss through internal mail. I reported on a boss who had taken $4,000 in payment from giving lectures in Defense College. And I asked the question of the registrar of Intan, are we allowed to take money like this during office hours? Because we already paid as Intan lecturers. I was posted in Intan. That sent me on a journey because he marked me down and he took action, and I missed my promotion that once time. Now I realized, my goodness, I had poked the hornet's nest. But that led me to my doctoral work on dignity in the workplace. Okay, I did, and I was fortunate at George Washington University in DC. There's a professor, Said Hussein Nas, and he told them, get off this guy's back. He's trying to argue something that's useful for Malaysia, because in Malaysia, they have 5 principles. First one says belief in God. So he is trying to create an ethical framework for him to work in the workplace, and you shouldn't say the secular sacred divide and so on and so forth. Anyway, that's a long story cut short. That's the reason. And I've been writing for the last 8 years premised on this perspective and worldview. So what are the things I'm interested in? And I'm going to propose that is actually my summary from my doctoral work. I'm going to propose that as a framework for us to think about. There is truth, and none of us will debate what truth is. Whether you call it public interest or public integrity, as Eric used the phrase this morning, there is truth out there. I don't want to use a controversial word called Allah. I'm joke intended, okay? Because the word has become controversial in Malaysia. Actually, it's not, okay? But we make it controversial. So, but that's talking about truth. Okay, that's truth. On the other, if you build a triangle in your minds, the other part of truth is I'm a journalist or I'm a civil servant. How do I engage with truth? Is there a limited dimension to truth? Is it only truth when I'm in the workplace? When I go home, it's not truth? You introduce yourselves human being. If there is no truth outside a workplace, then in the workplace you are only a human doing, and at home you are a human being. I'm just using another way of saying the same thing you just said. Okay, so journalists have that struggle. Then, is that the whole picture? It's not. Actually, there's a thing called a workplace, which is the third part of the triangle. Now, what is the workplace? We call it, when I was in public service, we call it government service. If you are in a media organization, you say, I'm University of Wollongong, or you say, I'm in Star, I work for Star. Somebody said that just now, okay? That's an organization. Now, if you put the three together, we have all the concoctions of this issue we're talking about. And what are the issues? It will address issues of what is truth, and what is the perspective of truth on each of the 3 points of the triangle. And what is, whose values define truth. I have many times in my column said we don't breathe green air. God knew what he was doing when he made air colorless. But sometimes in some spaces you feel like you are in green space. Okay? And you feel a bit claustrophobic. That's not intended to be. So values, whose values? And at the end of the day, human beings are designed to live a life of both dignity and destiny. Very important 2 words. Dignity, I achieve full human potential, whatever the plan. And of course, we are celebrating the man who just passed, who lived a life of full dignity and destiny, I would dare say. Nelson Mandela. Because he walked tall, even though he spent 27 years in jail. And especially because he spent 27 years in jail, he could come out with a heart of forgiveness. How many of us can do that? I mean, I quarreled with my wife, still haven't forgotten some of those small quarrels, okay. So how to make this big, huge thing, 27 years, carrying bricks to one end, the other end. I mean, I have not been to South Africa enough to visit the place. I've been to Joburg, but not been to the prison. But I have friends who visited the actual prison and tell me that was just carrying bricks on one end, and he had to train himself not to have negative attitudes. So that is what we are potentially able. But unfortunately, we are caught in this bind. We as journalists, I'm now going to call myself a journalist just to fit with you all. You are called to fair and accurate reporting, which was defined as facts. Then you have journalistic ethics or conscience, the conscience clause that Bob talked about. The difference between human beings and animals is that animals don't have a conscience. Okay, so they can get into a debate over whether animals have soul, no soul. We can get into that debate, but surely not human conscience. They don't know between right and wrong. I watch this whisperer now. This what do you call it? The dog whisperer. I watch the program because my son is interested in animal science. And he's the youngest boy. I have 5 children, and I told them no pets in my house. So we never had pets, and he wanted to do animal science, maybe out of spite. No. Okay, so I decided to watch. He said, Dad, you watch this, you will love animals. So I'm watching Animal Whisperer, Dog Whisperer. And what do I learn? I learned one important lesson. Dogs don't remember the past. They don't remember the past. They live in the here and now only. And that tells me they have no conscience too. Okay, so second. Then the third. This one, let me talk a bit more because this is an important area. We covered some of these issues earlier. They are owners, right? They are media owners and they are media managers. Sorry, those of us who are editors and sit in the editorial room and you protect yourself and think that you're only editors, you're not part of management. You are part of management. Because you carry managerial policy sometimes. So recently, I started writing with Malay Mail. Okay, last Tuesday, I had my first column out after a break of so many months, after my good friend Terence moved on, and then I didn't know who is now running the show. I have to deal with editors, otherwise I cannot write. And I have to meet face to face and agree on the ground rules, otherwise I cannot write. I'm not motivated to write because I always feel I'll be abused somehow. So I was chatting, and then he said, yeah, but you know we have some unwritten rules. And he actually spelled them out. I listened, I said, well, unless I have reason to pick on those rules, I'm not going to address them. But if I have to, I will. And he has a first right of refusal, which is one of my conditions. If that happens, I put it on I have a Facebook Truth Matters column, a section. So I'll put it on my Facebook. So what's the big deal? I carry on. I'm not going to be cowed by all these kind of things. Okay, but I understand that businesses who think of the bottom line, but I only encourage them, don't just think of the bottom line, also think of the top line. Now, what do I mean by the top line? Stewardship is a responsibility assigned to human beings for all of nature. It's a stewardship responsibility, not a use and dispose responsibility. It's a stewardship responsibility. So when I teach sometimes on integrity, I define integrity as the first 10% that you give away in a company, not the bottom 10%. Too often companies give the last 10%, then look for orphanages to go and have a photo opportunity. You don't believe in the worldview of man and nature, the spiritual crisis of modern man by Said Hussein Nas. Buy and read the book. It's a very simple, thin book, but it talks about a worldview of stewardship. So it's possible. Now, if you put all the three together, I'm sorry didn't do my homework and develop a PowerPoint or something. But if you put the facts, ethics, and media organization into a triangle, there are three factors that define in the middle, okay? The first is public integrity. Who protects public integrity? There are words like, when I was in government service, they said, but this is national interest. I was not smart enough then to say, but what is national interest? Is it different than public interest? I was not smart enough. Now I think I know a bit better. Okay. Then there is a thing called community interest. Yesterday in the UMNO General Assembly, they're debating whether Satu Melayu or Satu Malaysia. Okay, it's talking about whose interest comes first. Valid question. We have to think it through. But public interest cannot be reduced to community interest. Public interest is bigger than even national interest. I don't have time to cover, but there are 7 major stakeholders of public interest. Another day, another time, we can talk about it. I want to go to the second one. The idea of national interest. In our national land code, there was an amendment made which said that in the national interest, the government can acquire land. What happened? Those who are as old as I am know, Manlung and all the Johor land was acquired by the government and then abused. And then Tun Mahathir went back and changed it back to public interest from national interest. So these are not just words, by the way. National interest can be defined by the government of the day. Public interest, there are other parties, including Agong and others, if you go into big issues that need to be consulted. Then the third issue is community of sectoral interest. In this world today, we're breaking down into smaller and smaller community-based groups. We can't help it. Yesterday I was walking in Taman Aman in PJ and I met a friend, he introduced me to another friend, and then this guy, Arul, said, KJ, you and the other guy are both Malayalis, so speak Malayalam. Okay, for those of us who think they're only Indians, and now you are open up and say, well, they're Malayalis and they're Tamils and they're Telugu speaking people and they're etc., etc., etc. So there are 14 languages, I'm told, in India, recognized as major languages. So then there is subgroups, which is ethnicity, I also had breakfast with a good friend, Baka Sulaiman, 2 days ago. He wrote a book called Sensitive Truths in Malaysia. And he wanted to borrow my copy of the book called Contesting Malayness. It's not my book, it's published by NUS, ICS, Contesting Malayness. And the whole book is about who is a Malay, who is not a Malay. It's a big debate going on among the scholarly in the world. And here we reduce everything to a bunch of letters. And we think we've solved the problem, okay? So complex issues. Now, what has all that got to do with journalism? We some of us got together and decided to put all of this. After the last elections, we were very upset with media ethics. I won't quote anything specific, but a lot of media violated a lot of rules, and people like me stopped buying newspapers. And a campaign stopping buying some newspapers because some serious violation of media ethics. And false advertising, actually. I would call it false advertising or misleading advertising. Okay, one more minute. So we put together and tried to see what was the problem with media in Malaysia. We came out with 4 factors that contribute. One is ownership. Because ownership is limited to certain groups and selected people groups and parties and etc., but that is a win in the court recently. Malaysia Kini has been told to be instructed Home Affairs Minister to give a license to Malaysia Kini. I'm happy for Malaysia Kini. I ride with them. I don't write for them, I write with them, and they don't pay me. I refuse to accept payment. That's my part of me keeping my part of the bargain. Second is the legal control to conform. We still have the Printing and Press Act, which is the framework for abuse. In fact, that's the same framework that's being used to abuse even the word Allah. I'm a committed Christian. I take it seriously, this word. It predates Islam. It predates even Arabic. I've done my homework. But the judges in the appeal court didn't seem to have done their homework. And yet they drew some conclusions. So it's going to federal court. We don't need to debate it. Third one, media currently media organizations all have a short-term perspective. That's why when recently Malaysia Kini started their building campaign, I started telling everybody, go and buy a brick, $1,000 a brick to help put up a building for. Because we need independent media organizations. And to be fair, the University of Nottingham did a study in April for a 1-month period, from April 7th to May 7th. And they reported that mainstream media very overtly, biasly reported for BN parties against Pakatan parties. And the worst culprit they recorded is Bernama. I wish I could have raised the issues this morning. Anyway, finally, there is a concern, there is a quality in the media education. Standards are dropping in media, and partly I think it's linked to language. I was shocked to hear that Bernama couldn't find, but if you keep saying we are a government organization, you'll never get people, okay? They are not government. I pay for Bernama as a rakyat, So they start thinking themselves an independent news agency, which does some work for the government, but not everything for the government, With that, I'll take a stop here. Thank you.